I've never believed in ghosts. Not really. Sure, I'd watched every horror movie and read countless stories online, but in my day-to-day life, I laughed at people who claimed they saw spirits. My apartment was just a small, slightly run-down place in the city, the kind of building where the plumbing squeaked and the floorboards groaned. Nothing more. That was until the mirror appeared. I bought it at a secondhand shop on a rainy afternoon. It was tall, the kind you could stand in front of and see your whole body, with an ornate, almost Victorian frame covered in curling, blackened carvings. The shopkeeper had smiled when I picked it up, saying, "Careful with that one. It has character." I'd laughed and chalked it up to old man humor. I carried it up to my apartment on the third floor, joking to myself about how heavy it was, and set it against the wall in my bedroom. The first night, nothing unusual happened. I looked into it before bed, brushing my teeth, thinking about work, and went to sleep. But the second night, I woke up to a creaking sound. I thought it was the floorboards. Old apartments always groan. But the sound was rhythmic, deliberate. I froze in bed, straining my ears. Then I saw it. At the foot of my bed, just a shadow in the shape of a person, standing perfectly still. I blinked and it was gone. My heart was racing. I told myself I'd imagined it. Stress from work, lack of sleep, nothing more. I tried to go back to sleep, but every creak, every whisper of wind against the window made my skin crawl. Over the next few days, things escalated. The mirror started to feel off. I'd glance at it while making coffee or checking my reflection, and sometimes my reflection would linger just a fraction too long. Sometimes my reflection's smile didn't match mine, or its eyes would dart away when I wasn't moving. Once, I swore I saw it raise a hand in warning. I laughed nervously and told myself I was tired, imagining things. Then the whispers began, low, indecipherable, like someone speaking in a language I didn't know. I first heard them when I was alone in my apartment, cooking dinner. They seemed to come from the mirror itself. I approached it, hesitant, heart hammering, and as I stared, I could make out words, my name, repeated over and over. I stumbled back, almost knocking over a chair. My rational mind screamed at me, "This is impossible. It has to be acoustics, echoes, something explainable." Sleep became a nightmare. Every night, I'd see it, my reflection, smiling, mouthing words I couldn't hear, sometimes moving independently. Shadows would flicker behind me, in corners, in the doorway, and no matter how quickly I turned, they were gone when I looked directly at them. I stopped inviting friends over, afraid they'd see what I was seeing. I stopped leaving the bedroom light off. I stopped looking at the mirror at all, but it always found me. One night, I awoke to cold fingers brushing my cheek. I froze, eyes wide, heart racing. I was alone, or so I thought. The mirror, across the room, reflected the figure of a woman standing behind me. Her face was pale, almost translucent, with dark, hollow eyes that seemed too big for her skull. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I spun around. Nothing. I looked back at the mirror. She was gone. I stopped sleeping in my bedroom. I slept on the couch, lights blazing, trying to convince myself it was a hallucination. But each morning, the mirror had moved. Always slightly, subtly, closer to the bed, closer to where I had slept. I didn't touch it. I didn't want to. I didn't want it to notice. Then the dreams began. I would wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, seeing visions of the woman, but in impossible places, reflections in the shower, in the refrigerator glass, even in my phone screen. She would reach out, her long fingers scratching at the glass surface, as if trying to get out. I could feel her breath on my skin, icy and fetid. Every dream ended the same way, with her leaning in close, whispering words I couldn't understand, then pulling me into the glass. I started researching. Old records of the building mentioned a woman who died alone in her apartment decades ago. Rumors said she had a terrible, tragic life, her face distorted in anger and sorrow at the moment of death. There were mentions of mirrors, too many mentions. I tried to tell myself it was coincidence, but deep down I knew. One evening, I decided I had to get rid of the mirror. I dragged it to the hallway, leaning it against the wall, ready to call the junk removal people in the morning. That night, the whispers were louder, frantic. My reflection didn't mimic me. It sneered. Then it laughed, a low, guttural sound that made my stomach turn. I watched, paralyzed, as my reflection stepped out of the frame. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. It moved across the room with impossible speed. I ran, stumbling down the stairs, out the front door, into the empty street. The city was quiet, too quiet. Behind me, I heard a scraping sound, soft but persistent. I turned but saw nothing. I never looked back at the mirror. I didn't sleep in that apartment again. I moved out within a week, leaving everything behind. When I returned to retrieve a few items with a friend, the mirror was gone. Not stolen, not broken, just gone. The apartment felt empty, yet somehow alive. I've tried to forget it. I've tried to tell myself it was stress, insomnia, imagination. But sometimes when I brush my teeth in the hotel bathroom at night, I see it. Just for a second, in the corner of the mirror. A pale woman with hollow eyes, staring, watching, waiting. I still have nightmares. I still hear whispers when the wind blows just right. And sometimes, when I look in any reflective surface, I swear my reflection lingers too long, smiling a little too wide. A part of me knows she's still there, somewhere, waiting for the next time a reflection catches her eye. And maybe she's already found me. I used to love driving late at night. There was something hypnotic about the empty highways, the streetlights passing in a slow rhythm, the world reduced to the hum of tires on asphalt. I take these drives to clear my head, escape work, escape life, even if just for a couple of hours. I never expected one of those drives to become the most terrifying experience of my life. It started on a Friday. I had finished late at the office and was craving the kind of quiet only a long, solitary drive could give. I took my usual route, winding through the city outskirts and into the countryside. The sky was overcast, and a fine mist clung to the road. My car's headlights cut through it, illuminating the wet asphalt ahead. Everything felt normal, too normal. About an hour in, I noticed a small road I'd never taken before. It was narrow, lined with tall, dark trees that arched overhead, creating a tunnel effect. There were no signs, no markings, just a faded asphalt strip disappearing into darkness. For some reason, I felt compelled to turn onto it. The rational part of my mind screamed, not to, but curiosity won. As soon as I entered, the mist thickened. The road seemed to swallow sound. The car engine, the tires on the asphalt, even my own breathing seemed muffled. The trees on either side swayed, though the air was still. Then I saw it, a figure at the edge of the road. A man, or what looked like a man, standing perfectly still, staring at me. I slammed on the brakes, but the figure didn't move. I blinked and it was gone. My heart pounded, but I convinced myself it was a trick of the fog, a shadow, anything but real. I pressed on. The road narrowed further, twisting in impossible curves, though the map on my phone insisted I was still heading north. I glanced at it again, and the location marker blinked, spinning, as if it didn't know where I was. A chill crawled down my spine. Something about this road was wrong. Then the noises started. At first, it was a faint tapping, like someone drumming their fingers on glass. I looked around, but there was nothing. The sound grew louder, more insistent, now mixed with whispers. I couldn't make out the words, but they were urgent, demanding. I tried to focus on the road, tried to rationalize, but my hands shook on the wheel. I passed a rundown gas station that wasn't on the map. The lights flickered, buzzing like they were about to die. A man, or maybe it was the same figure, stood in the middle of the lot, but when I slowed, he vanished. I felt eyes on me, though I couldn't see anyone. My stomach churned. Minutes, or was it hours? Later, I came across an old, abandoned house beside the road. Its windows were dark, the wood rotting and sagging. A single light flickered inside, though no electricity could possibly be running. Against my better judgment, I stopped. There was something magnetic about it, a pull I couldn't resist. As I stepped out of the car, the whispers became clearer. I could hear them now, distinct words. Leave, now stay. They overlapped, impossible to understand fully, but terrifying all the same. The air was icy, even though the night was mild. My breath fogged in front of me, as if I had stepped into another world. The door to the house creaked open, and I swear I heard someone or something laugh. Not a normal laugh. It was hollow, echoing inside my chest, vibrating in my bones. My instinct screamed to run, but I found myself walking forward. Step by step, I crossed the threshold. Inside, the house was empty. Dust coated every surface, cobwebs draped the corners. Yet it felt alive. The walls seemed to pulse, and shadows moved at the edge of my vision. I called out, my voice shaking. "Hello." No answer. Only the whispers circling, growing louder, coming from everywhere and nowhere. I found a staircase leading down to a basement. Against my better judgment, I descended. The air grew colder, thick with the smell of mildew and something else, metallic like blood. At the bottom, I saw a room lined with mirrors, dozens of them, all cracked, all reflecting my image in strange, distorted ways. And in each reflection, the figure of a man or something stood behind me, smiling. I spun around. Nothing. My heart hammered, sweat stinging my eyes. I turned back to the mirrors. One by one, the reflections began to move independently. They whispered, their mouths moving, words I could now understand. "Stay forever. Join us." My knees gave out. I fell backward, hitting the cold floor. My hand scrambled for my phone, only to find it dead. No signal, no battery, nothing. Then the lights went out. Complete darkness. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. The whispers turned into screams, overlapping, deafening, surrounding me. I tried to crawl toward the stairs, but something grabbed my ankle. Ice-cold fingers gripping tightly. I screamed, kicked, and somehow tore free, scrambling up the stairs, through the door, and into the night. The road was gone. I drove frantically, but every turn, every mile, led me back to that same strip of fog, that same twisted path, that same abandoned house looming ahead. Panic overtook me. My eyes were stinging from tears, my mind screaming. I couldn't escape. I couldn't stop. Every time I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw him, or them, standing silently in the distance, waiting for me. Hours, days, time became meaningless. I don't know how long I drove, but exhaustion overtook me. My car ran out of fuel at some point, yet I kept walking. And then I saw the road signs, blinking in the fog, pointing back the way I had come. Each one read the same: "Welcome to the Forgotten Road." I don't remember how I got back to civilization. I woke up on a park bench, the sun rising, people jogging past me, staring, whispering. My clothes were torn, my shoes scuffed. My phone had service again, but all the footage, all the recordings I tried to make were gone. Nothing existed to prove what happened. Since that night, I avoid driving after dark. I avoid roads I don't know. But sometimes, in my dreams, I return. The fog thickens, the whispers return, and I see that house, standing at the edge of reality. And sometimes, in my peripheral vision, I catch movement, shadowy figures, waiting, smiling, beckoning. Waiting for the next driver who dares to take that forgotten road. I try to tell myself it was a hallucination, some kind of psychotic break from exhaustion. But I know the truth. The forgotten road is real. It waits, patient and hungry. And I can still feel them watching me, even now, just beyond the edges of perception, waiting for the moment I let my guard down. I will never drive at night again. Not alone. Not ever. And yet, sometimes when I glance at a road in the distance, illuminated by a streetlight cutting through the fog, I feel the pull. That same terrible pull that started it all. And I shiver, knowing it will always be there, waiting. I've lived in cities all my life, and I thought I knew what it meant to live alone. To be truly alone. My first apartment in the city was small but cozy, a one-bedroom on the 4th floor of a building that had seen better days. The rent was cheap, and it was close to work. I didn't care about the creaky floors, the thin walls, or the dim lighting in the hallway. I had my space, my solitude. That was all that mattered. It started quietly. I would hear footsteps above me, light at first like someone pacing. The building had thin floors. I didn't think much of it. People walked at all hours. But then the footsteps began to change. They became deliberate, rhythmic, heavy, slow, and they always stopped when I stopped moving. I could sit in the living room, and As soon as I stopped, the steps would stop too. My first thought was a neighbor, someone out of sync, maybe a new tenant. But the apartment above me was empty. I checked the rental listings multiple times. No one was supposed to be living there. I even called the landlord, who laughed and said, "Maybe the building is settling. Old floors make noise." I accepted that for a while, but the noises grew worse. At night, I'd lie in bed listening. It wasn't just footsteps anymore. Doors would slam above me. I'd hear dragging sounds like furniture being moved. Sometimes there were low, guttural noises, almost like whispering, but twisted, warped, impossible to understand. I tried to rationalize it. Mice? Settling? A storm? Nothing fit. One night, I woke to the sound of a knock on my ceiling. Not a tap, a knock. 3 sharp, deliberate raps. I froze, staring at the ceiling, heart hammering. I whispered, "Hello." No response, just silence. Then a pause. Another set of knocks. This time, the pattern was different. 1 long, 2 short. My stomach sank. I knew that pattern. I had heard it somewhere before, in a dream, a nightmare I couldn't remember clearly. But it felt familiar, sinister. Days passed. I stopped leaving the apartment. I couldn't. Every time I opened the door, I thought I'd see someone standing in the hallway, waiting. Every time I looked at the ceiling, I thought I'd see a face pressed against it. My friends called, worried. I told them I was busy, tired, overworked. No one understood. How could I explain footsteps, knocks, whispers from an apartment that was supposed to be empty? The first real encounter happened one night around 2 a.m. I was awake, reading in bed, when I heard a dragging sound above me. It was slow, deliberate, and coming closer to where I slept. My blood ran cold. I grabbed a baseball bat from under the bed, heart hammering, and whispered, "I'm armed. I'll call the cops if you don't leave." The dragging stopped. I held my breath. And then I heard a voice. Soft, almost a whisper, but not human. "Leave or join me." The words were stretched, warped, like someone had pulled them through a grinder. My hand shook, gripping the bat. "Who's there?" I demanded. Nothing. Just the sound of breathing above me. Deep, wet, resonating in my bones. I tried to call out again, but my voice failed. My throat felt constricted, like someone or something was squeezing it from above. I slept in the living room that night, lights blazing, doors locked. But every time I tried to rest, I'd hear it. Footsteps pacing, dragging, whispering. It wasn't just noises. It felt intelligent, aware, like it was studying me, learning my routines. I started keeping a journal, writing down every sound, every movement. Patterns emerged. The footsteps weren't random. They followed me, imitated me. Sometimes I'd clap my hands and the footsteps would stop. Other times, I'd move in the dark and the footsteps mirrored me exactly. Then the mirror appeared. I don't know where it came from. One morning, it was propped against the wall in my bedroom. Not mine. I hadn't bought it. I hadn't moved it. It was tall, framed in black wood, with ornate carvings curling like thorns. I stared at it, confused, heart pounding. And that's when I saw it. A figure above me. Not in the reflection of my room, but above me, hanging, suspended in the ceiling's dark shadows. Its eyes were hollow, black pits, and it smiled. The smile was too wide, too sharp, impossibly grotesque. I screamed. It vanished. My scream echoed, but there was no one to hear it. I called the police. They came, searched the building, checked the apartment above me. Empty. No signs of entry. No traces of anyone living there. Old buildings, they said. People hear things. It's probably stress. But I knew better. I could feel it. Something was in my apartment, and it wasn't human. The nights became unbearable. I started sleeping with the lights on, a knife under my pillow, checking every corner of the apartment before lying down. Still, the footsteps returned. The whispers returned. And sometimes I would see it in the corner of my eye, a tall, shadowy figure, moving impossibly fast, vanishing when I tried to focus on it. Then one night, it spoke clearly. I was in the living room, pacing, unable to sleep, when it whispered directly into my ear, "You can't leave." I spun around. Nothing. My apartment was empty, but the words lingered, vibrating in my skull. I ran to the door, tried to leave, and the handle wouldn't budge. It was locked. From the outside, I was trapped. I spent the night in the bathroom, shaking, trying to rationalize. Morning came, but the relief was temporary. Every night, the same thing. I could no longer distinguish reality from hallucination. The noises, the whispers, the figure. It didn't matter what was real anymore. It existed in my mind, my home, my life. And I couldn't escape it. One night, I woke to a shadow looming over me. Not in the bed, not in the corner. Above me, like it had crawled onto the ceiling, stretching impossibly, looking down. Its smile was wider than ever. Its eyes gleamed with malice. And it whispered, "Join me." I ran. I don't know how far, how long. I left everything behind. Apartment, belongings, my life. I moved to another city, changed my number, even my name. But sometimes, late at night, I hear the footsteps again. In hotel rooms, in my new apartment, in empty streets. And sometimes I look up and see a shadow, just for a second, watching, waiting. I try to tell people, friends, therapists, anyone who would listen. They call it paranoia, hallucinations, anxiety. But I know the truth. It's waiting for me. That apartment above. That shadow. It hasn't left. And I can't stop feeling its presence, looming, patient, watching, knowing that one day it will catch me. Every reflective surface, every dark corner, every ceiling in every room I enter. Sometimes I see a glimpse of it. The hollow eyes, the impossible smile. And a part of me knows it will never stop. I've been running for years now, changing cities, jobs, apartments. But the footsteps are always there. Sometimes just faint, just outside my perception, but always present. And every night, I hear them, pacing above me, whispering, "You can't leave. You can't escape. Join me." I don't sleep anymore. I don't trust silence. And I don't look up, because I know, one day, it will be right above me again.